Welcome to episode 2 of the Arstotzkan Automobile Challenge, where viewers like you compete to have their car chosen as the official automobile of the communist country of Arstotzka. In this episode, with only 21 cars remaining, the Automotive Council must separate the good cars from the great ones. Dmitry seeks a fast and luxurious vehicle. Sergiu demands a practical and powerful working vehicle, while Vonel is primarily concerned about price, fuel economy, and upkeep. To go on to the finals, a car must appeal to at least 2 of the 3 members of the council. That means that only cars that excel in 2 areas are going on to the next round. Without further ado, let's look at the remaining cars.
Hey, shit-ass. You're going to Uzbekistan.
The Kehitaa Leijona will make a good baseline for comparing some of the other cars in this competition. It has pretty average all-around stats and a price that's just about $1,000 under the maximum budget. It sticks out a little bit in that it has a fairly powerful motor, one of the 6 cylinders here. 2 liters, 12 valves, and a single overhead cam make up for 75 horsepower, which if you eliminate some of the cars that were junked early on, makes it almost one of the fastest here. Otherwise, it has pretty good economy car sensibilities, with a McPherson strut and semi-trailing arm suspension and a unibody construction. In terms of more conventional technology, it's a rear-wheel drive car with a 4-speed manual and drum brakes all around. Cornering braking are so-so, not great, not terrible. It also has a radio, although the interior construction is slightly shoddy. What do our judges think? For Dmitry, the good looks and power are a great start, but no power steering means it's a little stiff. For Sergiu, it's not really practical enough. He'd rather have a liftback or some more space inside. For Vonel, it's at least under budget, and the fuel economy is kind of lousy at only 20 miles per gallon, but it also does run on low-grade gas. Vonel might be convinced to approve this with some peer pressure, but he's not getting it for this car. The Leijona is really not a bad car, but some of the cars coming up do it better. The GSI Sochi 1600 is probably the most American car after the Iron Horse. It's got a ladder frame, front engine rear-wheel drive with push rods, a solid rear axle, and then it spends the budget saved on these simple design choices by going for luxury features such as power steering and a radio. The only thing it's missing to be completely American is an automatic transmission, but it has a 4-speed manual like most of the cars here. This car also has another quirk that's common to a lot of the cars in this competition, which is a manual locking differential. Now, most people consider those to be unrealistic on 2-wheel drive cars, since in real life they're really only on 4-wheel drives and trucks. I'm not directly penalizing it, but just keep in mind that this adds a lot of off-road score and automation. I'm trying to look past that to see whether the car is actually viable for off-road driving without a locking diff, especially if your car is front-wheel drive or something. That's not a problem for the Sochi, however, which has enough ride height to handle bumps with ease. In overall performance, it actually compares pretty favorably to the Leijona. It's got better drivability, some sportiness, which comes from a 14-second 0 to 60 time, making it the quickest car still in the competition, and even though it's a little smaller, it has about the same practicality and better off-road. Overall cost is $400 more, but the maintenance component is considerably less, which Vonel favors in the long term. Vonel doesn't approve of the Sochi's price tag, but Dmitry can't wait to get one for its great speed, good comfort, and handling. Sergiu also approves. It's only modestly practical, but it does great off-road. With 2 out of 3 votes, the Sochi will go on to next round. The Blinka 1200AZ is a car aimed squarely at the cheap commuter segment. It uses a very modern design philosophy with a front transverse engine. This gets great fuel economy, although it can increase service costs a little bit. The Blinka is cheap and gets almost 25 miles per gallon on the cheap gas, which is great for Vonel's approval. However, it only has 4 seats and it's small, which puts it out of the running for Sergio immediately, and the driving quality and comfort just aren't up to snuff for Dimitri, so this won't be going on to the next round. The next car up is the ZRD-P, an even smaller 3-door hatchback. The P stands for premium. This is another car in the dirt cheap category. It's not the cheapest car in a competition, but it's quite close. It's powered by a 4-cylinder engine coming in just under 1 liter, with a single overhead cam and dual carbs. The engine is, predictably, not very powerful, but the impressive performance figure is a fuel economy of 30 miles to the gallon on low-quality gas. This tiny, front-wheel drive car has an impressive handling score. In fact, it's the highest drivability of any car with a manual transmission. On the downside, reliability is mediocre because of a negative engine family quality, and the off-road score is dependent on a manual locker, which is a very questionable value in a front-wheel drive car like this. Between that and the small size, it's a definite no from Sergio. In what could be described as a propaganda-first strategy to convincing owners that their car is a luxurious one, is a standard quality radio but only basic quality seats. It makes up on the comfort a little bit by having a tall and soft suspension design. Great handling, power steering, and relative comfort make this Dimitri's favorite of the tiny, cheap cars, so he'll give it his approval and send it on to the next round. The Bazard L14M is a bit of an ugly duckling, but it has one thing going for it: the best reliability in the competition. The aptly named Reliable i4 is a 1.5 liter motor with push rods, and it has positive quality in most areas where it counts. The car itself is an old school design with a ladder frame and solid rear axle, and the standout feature of being built out of corrosion resistant steel. It's not cheap to build, but it is cheap to run, with decent gas mileage and very low maintenance costs. The rear-wheel drive layout gives it decent off-road ability and has just enough power to do some work, so between that and the reliability, it'll get Sergio's approval. On the other hand, the interior is very Spartan, and the all-around drum brakes are a bit bad, so Dimitri's not going to approve this one. The decision comes down to Vonel, who wants to see it go forward on the grounds that it has a low running cost and it should last a long time. The Vulkan Vickers is another Western-style front-wheel drive car. It's powered by a relatively massive 1.3 liter 3-cylinder, but it makes an impressive 31 miles to the gallon. A lot of that might have to come down to the 5-speed shifter, which is a standout feature. Another standout feature is seatbelts. Crash testing isn't really a thing in Arstotzkan, but it's easy to tell that this is the safest car here. The manufacturer brags that it's so reliable, it'll outlast a nuclear Halo cost. In addition to being a typo, the reliability is actually only middling. It's dragged down by the large 3-cylinder, which despite the aggressive measures of forged internals, is threatening to shake itself apart at every opportunity. 5 doors and 5 seats make it decently practical. You can fit a lot in this car. It also has an impressive off-road score, the highest of any front-wheel drive vehicle here. You can discount that in your head a little bit, because it has a questionable manual locker. But still, overall, Sergio is interested enough to give this car his approval. It has no power steering and lacks luxury features, so Dimitri's already gone to look at something else. But Vonel will approve of this car for its middling cost and great gas mileage, so it goes on to the next round. PAM 1150 is another front-wheel drive tiny hatchback, this time with the distinction of the cheapest manufacturing cost of any car. This was achieved by using negative quality in a lot of categories, and some simple design choices like a solid rear axle. Not surprisingly, this means that no area of the performance stands out very much. That might be okay, but its budgetary claim to fame is marred by a relatively high service cost and poor gas mileage. This car costs almost as much to run for 5 years as it does to build. With long-term costs taken into account, some other cars at this price range just do it better. Now 4 cars have been eliminated, and 3 have been chosen to go on to the next round. 14 are still undecided, so join us next time for the dramatic middle episode of the Arstotzkan Automobile Challenge.